Unexplainable Cursed Revenge, 7 Terrifying Secrets Revealed in a Sinister Haunted Tale. Emily staggered into her dimly lit home, the door creaking ominously behind her. She pushed away the tiredness that clung to her like a second skin. Nights at the diner were long and grueling, but she had her kids to think about. Jack and Mia were her world, the only light in her dark, weary life. She should have felt relief in the familiar surroundings, but an unsettling tension prickled at the back of her neck, sending chills down her spine. The shadows played tricks on her as if they were alive, flickering menacingly in the corners of their small suburban home. As she tucked her children into bed, the house seemed unnaturally quiet. The usual hum of suburban life outside felt stifled, as if the world had taken a breath and held it tight. Was that a whisper? A nagging voice lingered just on the edge of her hearing, nipping at her nerves. She shook her head, chalking it up to exhaustion. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. The following nights unraveled into a series of unsettling incidents. Mia complained of a cold breeze in her room when the windows were shut tight. Jack heard scratching sounds at night, a soft rasping that crawled beneath his bedroom door, leaving him in a cold sweat. Emily lay awake, her heart racing, acutely aware of every creak the house made, every rustle of the wind outside. False security loomed in the air, taunting her as she replayed the events in her mind. One late evening, while Emily rummaged through the attic for Jack's long-lost toy, he stumbled upon a dusty photo. Its frame was old, eerily ornate, capturing a moment from ages past, and the faces within seemed to stare right through him. Their eyes were void of warmth, flickering with something darker. A chill danced along Emily's spine when she glanced at it, as if a forgotten memory long buried was trying to claw its way back to the surface. "Mom, look!" Jack called out, excitement bursting from his small frame. But Emily felt dread as she approached him. She took the photo gently, and the moment their fingers brushed against the frame sent a shiver racing through her. It was more than dust that covered it, layers of secrecy and unease clung to it like the moonlight that flickered through the attic window. Suddenly, the neighborhood that had once felt safe transformed into a breeding ground of unease. Cars had begun to mysteriously break down, pets went missing, and whispers about curses wrapped around the town like a thick fog. When she approached the local authorities, her warnings were met with dismissive shrugs and raised eyebrows, deepening her isolation, pushing her into a world where trust had become slippery. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Back in her home, the shadows thickened, twisting into grotesque shapes as night fell. Paranoia gnawed at her insides, with every creak of the floor echoing in her mind like a warning bell. The whispers now formed sentences woven with betrayal, and suddenly, people she once considered allies sported suspicious glances, each locked away behind the facade of their homes. As the dark tendrils of a family curse began to embrace her, Emily confronted an agonizing truth: the fate of her children now hung in the balance, tethered to the shifting shadows around them. Tomorrow, the abandoned school would reveal its secrets, the roots of this insidious darkness running outright in the open. The very walls held memories that whispered promises of vengeance, echoing the names of those who had come before her. The door loomed ahead like a trap waiting to spring, and with trepidation, she breathed deep, steeling herself for what lay beyond. Would she emerge unscathed, or would she fall prey to the horrifying truth that demanded recompense? Only time held the answer, and the ticking clock grew louder, an unsettling reminder that the shadows were only waiting. Emily stood at the threshold of the old school, her heartbeat loud in her ears, drowning out the growing hum of whispers that floated through the air like an invitation. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across cracked windows, weary doors, and peeling paint that had once been vibrant. Each step forward felt like a descent into a nightmare, one she couldn't escape. As she crossed the threshold, the chill seeped through her clothes, wrapping around her like a malevolent embrace. The silence was overwhelming. It wasn't the absence of sound, it was as though the building itself was holding its breath, waiting for her to uncover its secrets. The air thickened, carrying a faint, acrid smell of decay and lost hopes. Pushing through the halls, memories of faded laughter and muted cries echoed in her mind, visions of children long gone swirling like phantoms in her thoughts. Her heart raced further, each room whispering into her soul. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that unseen eyes tracked her every move. Shadows danced just beyond the periphery, teasing and taunting, daring her to go further. A flicker caught her attention, a light flickering softly from a nearby classroom. With cautious footsteps, Emily approached, her breath shallow. As she peered inside, she was met with a sight that stole the air from her lungs. Desk arrangements formed strange pentagrams in chalk, dust motes swirling like trapped souls in the hazy light. And in the center of it all stood a blackboard, its surface scratched deep with furious messages, words carved with despair and rage. "You do not belong." Fear crawled up her spine. What was this place? She turned to leave, but the very door she had just entered slammed shut, shaking the frame and echoing in her ears. Her heart pounded as she flung herself against it, desperation coursing through her like wildfire. "Let me out!" she screamed, her voice cracking. Silence answered, thick and heavy. Then came the whispers, louder now. They swirled around her, filling her with dread. "You were warned. You chose to enter. They'll come for you." They slithered into her mind, coiling around her thoughts, drawing her deeper into a darkness she couldn't comprehend. Frantically, she turned to the room, scanning for an escape. That's when she saw it, a mirror on the wall, clouded and dusty. Approaching with trepidation, her reflection wavered, the surface rippling like disturbed water. She leaned closer, compelled by a force she couldn't resist. What stared back at her was not her own image but a visage twisted in sorrow and rage, eyes filled with unfathomable loss. "Help us, free us," the mirror wept, its voice echoing through empty space like a lost child's cry. Emily recoiled, heart racing wildly. The temperature dipped, and a cold breath tickled her neck. Spinning around, she saw shadows forming shapes, a figure at the doorway, eyes glowing dimly in the dark. "Mom!" Jack's voice echoed in her mind, merging with the distant figure beckoning her closer. It was no longer just a mission to uncover the truth, it had escalated into a battle against something ancient, an entity bound by betrayal. The whispers turned to howls, the room closing in on her as she stumbled backward. She had been drawn in, and now there was no turning back. In that moment, Emily realized the truth behind the curse. The haunting would not be satisfied until it claimed more souls. She turned, searching frantically for a way out, desperation fueling her every step. "This ends now!" she shouted, her voice breaking the oppressive silence, but as she reached for the door, she heard it, the soft, creeping sound of small footsteps behind her. She spun again, dread flooding her senses as she saw two shadowy figures standing just within grasp of the darkness. They had come to claim their own. "Mom!" Jack and Mia echoed, their voices mingling with the chorus of spirits, locked forever in this prison of despair. Would they be freed, or would she join them in the cursed cycle of revenge? The darkness pressed down, and Emily realized the true horror awaited her in the shadows. As the whispers clawed at her sanity, she dashed towards the exit, driven by a primal instinct to protect her kids at all costs. But the trap was set, and the night was just beginning. Emily lunged for the door, her palms slick with sweat as she rattled the handle, panic boiling in her chest. Every ounce of her being screamed to escape, to shield Jack and Mia from the grip of this dark force. As her body slammed against the heavy wooden barrier, the whispers morphed into a wailing chorus. They seemed to seep from the very walls, echoing decades of torment. "Mom! Don't leave us!" Their voices pierced through the howling wind, a mix of pleading and accusation. The affection lurking within those words twisted, becoming something much darker. The door remained stubbornly shut. Emily's heart raced as she turned back, eyes wide with terror. The figures were closer now, only inches from her. Jack and Mia stood there, impossibly still, their eyes hollow, void of life and warmth, just those of lost souls lingering on the edge of despair. A chill swept through her, sharp and biting. "Mom, help us," they whispered in separate breaths, each word dripping with the gravity of unfulfilled promises. She reached out, but her hands met a barrier not of glass, but of something sinister, unseen yet palpable. "Let them go," she shouted, voice breaking. The shadows pulsed around her, growing thicker, a wave of darkness that seemed to expand with her fear. "Join us, Emily," a voice echoed, sultry yet filled with malice. The figure from the doorway began to solidify, its features a grotesque mimic of her own. The entity wore her face, but the eyes were lifeless, consumed by vengeance. "No." She spun back to the door, still locked tight. Panic surged, she knew she had to keep her composure. The echoes of past horrors around her crackled, old memories woven into the very fabric of the school. Years of desperation cloaked the air, thick as fog. Suddenly, the coldness intensified. It pulled at her, urging her to relinquish her grip on reality. "You're not real," she shouted, trying to convince herself as much as the apparition. "Mom," the haunting trill from Jack and Mia felt like a dagger to her heart. The shadows writhed, and the chalk on the floor pulsed as if alive. Images of other children flitted through her mind, faded senses of laughter, sorrow, unfinished lives hovering on the edges of fulfillment. Then, a desperate idea sparked. The mirror. The reflection had shown a way to free them. Perhaps she could bargain with whatever force bound these souls. It was a gamble, it could either save them or doom them all. "I will help you," Emily cried, voice trembling. "Just tell me what to do." The shadows momentarily quieted, the oppressive whispers dying down to a low rumble. The entity smiled, a grotesque, crooked thing, its shape flickering like a faulty bulb. "You must choose, Emily," it crooned. "Choose to free them or join them." Before her, the figures of her children dissolved and reformed, twisting as they cried for her once more. The air thickened with despair, old sadness mixing with the urgency in her veins. With frantic determination, she stepped back from the door and approached the blackboard. The messages etched into its surface transformed, vivid words swirling in a violent chaos: betrayal, sacrifice, vengeance. Emily's mind raced. If she could somehow confront the cursed history of the school, maybe, just maybe, she could rewrite the ending. She climbed onto a desk, staring down at the board. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, the challenge to the darkness ringing in her ears. The response was immediate, a low growl that traveled through the floor, shaking her to the core. "Your sacrifice must be eternal." A visceral fear clawed at her throat. She could feel the darkness closing in again, the shadows almost alive, pressing against her, suffocating her. Suddenly, she knew, to save her children, she had to confront the very heart of that evil within this dreadful building. Would she yield herself in a bid to save Jack and Mia, or was there another way? A gust swept through the room, spiraling chaos around her, and the trap was set anew. Time was running out, and the curtain of darkness was poised to drop. As the walls echoed with tortured cries, she braced herself. The ultimatum hung in the air, leaving her breathless. Would she discover the truth in motion before it was too late, or would she become yet another echo lost in the abyss? The whispers returned, rising like an angry tide around Emily. They were no longer just sounds, they became a symphony of despair, weaving stories of loss and betrayal that reached deep into her chest. Shadows twisted and churned, their forms distorting into haunting visages that seemed to reach out with skeletal fingers. "Emily," they hissed, a cacophony that hung like smoke in the air. "You can't escape us." Heart pounding, she felt her breath quicken. What if she failed? The thought alone sent shards of ice through her veins, freezing her feet to the floor. She forced herself to think. She needed clarity in this tempest of fear. "Give them back," she cried, desperation clawing her voice. "Jack! Mia!" The figures flickered, her children appearing and vanishing like ghosts, their faces twisted in torment that mirrored her own anguish. Then her gaze flicked back to the blackboard, alive with moving words, and the glimmer of hope within those inscriptions lit a fire in her heart. "What history is this?" she shouted, rage piercing through the fear. "What did you do to them?" The entity before her, her wretched doppelganger, laughed a sound devoid of joy. "Their lives were forfeit in these halls, Emily. You cannot save them," it hissed, its voice a low echo reflecting the despair that permeated the very walls. "Then I'll make you pay," she declared, a flicker of resolve igniting amidst the engulfing darkness. With every ounce of strength, Emily leaped from the desk and raced to the blackboard, fingers trembling as she touched its cold surface. The words sizzled against her skin, and a new message erupted before her eyes: the souls demand tribute. A surge of horror washed over her. Would they sacrifice her children to bind her to this place? No, she seized the moment. "I will not be their pawn." Jack and Mia's voices twisted through the air again, heartbreak and pleading. "Mom, please!" they cried, an echo from the depths of the void. She could almost reach out to them, but the closer she moved, the stronger the shadows pulled her back. She could feel their cold breath on her neck, crawling in her mind. "Join us!" the apparition taunted, its grin widening, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "You can have them here with you forever." "Never!" she shouted, determination surging anew. "I'm no one's sacrifice." As she raked her nails against the board, it exploded with swirling energy. Images of other children and their fragmented joys, their innocent laughter, surged through her mind. They were victims too. This didn't only belong to her. She thought of their carefree moments, classrooms lit with sunshine, playdates at the park. Was it truly over? The air crackled with unseen electricity. The shadows recoiled, as if her memories were light piercing through their gloom. "You," the entity snarled, rage boiling over. "You dare to resist?" For the first time, doubt rippled through the entity. It faltered, its form growing indistinct. Emily saw the opening, her chance to strike. "If these shadows want a sacrifice, I offer mine," she yelled, arms outstretched as she braced herself against the rush of dark energy. A harrowing cry erupted from within the walls. "No!" it shrieked, as the shadows writhed in panic. Emily felt the other broken spirits shifting, their quiet murmurs becoming a wail of anguish. They echoed her defiance. "This is not just my fight," she gasped, turning to the swirling shadows. "This is for all of you." Just then, a sudden light pierced the darkness. A blinding flash from the blackboard erupted, illuminating the space around her. It was the hope of all those lost, desperately yearning for release. The shadows recoiled, and Emily embraced the moment, diving into the chaos. As she was engulfed, time shattered. She felt weightless, visions swirling and crashing like waves against the shore. Was this the end, or just the beginning? And then a silence fell. The shadows huddled at the edges, whispering frantically, their shapes merging with the walls. Then came a voice, one that dripped with malice yet felt familiar. "Emily, did you really think you could defy me?" The ground beneath her began to tremble, and the school itself felt alive, shuddering with anger. As she stood on the precipice, confronted with this unfathomable force, she realized she had only just unlocked the true horror lurking within the walls. What lay ahead? What darkness would she have to face now? The truth was hidden in layers of anguish, and only by peeling them back could she hope to save her children or doom them all forever. The silence clung to Emily, thick and heavy, as if smothering her very spirit. She felt the vibrations beneath her feet surge like a pulse, each beat whispering secrets of the school's tortured past. Was it really alive? Panic seeped into her bones, and dread tightened its grip around her. "Embrace the darkness, Emily," the voice cooed from the depths. It twisted with familiarity, wrapping around her heart like a vice. The shadows flickered with malicious intent, solidifying into faces she recognized, classmates, teachers, spirits lost to despair. Those who had fallen victim to the void were watching her, eyes hollow yet hungry. Jack. Mia. She screamed, but the school swallowed her words, the echoes twisting, contorting until they morphed into haunting laughter. She spun around, searching for an escape, but the walls had tightened, encasing her in a labyrinth of despair. Desperation clawed at her throat. She couldn't let them see her fear. Not now. Tears burned her eyes, but she fought them back. Fighting back tears wouldn't save them, but she had to believe. Your sacrifice is inevitable, the voice sneered, and shadows lunged toward her, swirling like a cyclone of despair. She staggered back, heart racing, the memories of her children fueling the fire in her chest. No. I won't give in. With a primal scream, she slammed her hands against the nearest wall, feeling its cold texture pulse beneath her palms. The shadows writhed, recoiling as if her touch repelled them. The blackboard began to glow again, its surface rippling. Words formed slow and deliberate, end the cycle. Each word burned with urgency, igniting something deep within her. It was a puzzle, the light felt promising, but how? Powers danced within her, buried beneath fear. Breathing in sharply, she harnessed it, weaving together the love she had for her children and the agony of those lost. End the cycle. She shouted, voice echoing as her lunges against darkness softened the oppressive weight around her. Emily remembered the lives cut short, the laughter stifled. The blend of memories surged through her veins, a tide of strength pushing against the shadows. Suddenly, the ground buckled, the school itself protesting as spectral forms convulsed in anger. The energy was building a storm ready to unleash its fury. A swirling vortex opened around her, the shadows trying desperately to claw their way back, desperate to snatch away the light she summoned. Fight! Fight! The whispers urged, a chorus growing louder. The pressure intensified until she felt as if she might explode. In that moment, a faint silhouette emerged from the chaos. It shimmered weaker than the others, exuding fragility yet holding an undeniable warmth. Jack. Her heart soared, but horror twisted in her stomach as he reached out, trapped in the darkness, his face pale and pleading. Mom, don't let it take you, he urged, voice tremulous. Yes, I'll save you. She cried, heart shattering, but suddenly, the entity before her took form. It unfurled like dark wings, every detail sharper than before. You will not win, Emily. You will join them in time. With renewed fury, she lunged at the glowing blackboard, screaming her children's names. The walls of the classroom shook violently, shadows drawn to her call. I am your mother. My love is light. You cannot have us. A blinding light erupted from her heart, shooting through her outstretched hands as crashing waves against jagged rocks. She felt the true force of her love, a geyser bursting forth, illuminating the darkness surrounding her, but the fight was far from over. The shadows clawed at her, willing to drag her down into a pit of despair. Time slowed, grit and determination fueling her. Would she break the cycle? With the darkness closing in, a moment of truth hung in the air. Had she finally awakened the battle? The whispered secrets surged, threatening to engulf her once again. As the last remnants of light shone down, a sharp, stinging pain shot through her like a knife. She gasped, her heart racing. What would she sacrifice to save them? And would it be enough? The shadows surged forward, and the floor split beneath her feet, dragging her deeper. With every ounce of willpower, she held on, breathless, on the brink, ready for whatever lay ahead. What other dreadful truths awaited, waiting to entwine her in their sinister embrace? Seething darkness swallowed Emily as the ground pulled her deep beneath the school, each descending inch a reminder of the loss that bound her. She fought the grip of despair tightening around her like a noose, drawn tighter with every breath. Her heart thundered, each beat a war drum urging her to fight. Jack! Mia, she screamed again, but the walls were silent, drowning her pleas with menacing whispers. They beckoned from the shadows, voices she once recognized twisted beyond recognition. Join us, Emily. The darkness surged like a tide, threatening to submerge her completely. Those soulless eyes haunted her, feeding on her fear. Yet she held on to the flickering light of hope sparked by love. I am here for you, she whispered fervently, although dread clawed at her chest, choking the words. As she fell deeper, the ground shifted, becoming less like solid earth and more like a swirling mass of anger and sorrow. Strange symbols flashed past her, illuminating moments from the past, Jack's first steps, Mia's laughter echoing in the sun-drenched hallways. These memories glowed like embers against the suffocating black, urging her to hold on. A new wave of heat surged through her. You are strong, she muttered, half to herself, half to her lost children. She felt the warmth expand within her, feeding off the memories. I won't let you down. With that resolve, she drew the power towards her like a magnet, fighting against the cold despair. Suddenly, the shadows barked with fury, swirling like a raging tempest. They no longer lingered, they lunged. Sharp fangs of dread pierced at her, unrelenting, hungry for her surrender. What do you want? She yelled into the void, defiance crashing against hopelessness. The response came as quick as a whip, the darkness coiling around her throat, squeezing tighter. You know what everything you hold dear. The floor gave way beneath her, and she plummeted into a pit that echoed with laughter joyless and mocking. Emily pressed her eyes shut, blocking the grotesque faces appearing before her, remnants of students lost in the depths of the school. They grinned behind gritted teeth, their eyes reflecting endless sorrow. Help us, they whispered, laced with the chill of betrayal. No. She wouldn't be fooled. The glowing remnants of the blackboard flickered in her mind, the command echoing like a thunderclap. End the cycle. If she found the courage to confront this evil, perhaps she could save them all. Stirring the courage deep within, she focused on her family, the warmth of their love, a light that sliced through the shadows. Summoning her strength, Emily spread her arms wide, feeling the flicker of light within pouring out. An unbearable pressure built in her chest, forcing out a scream as a luminous force erupted from her heart. Waves of energy cascaded, illuminating the dark pit and illuminating the twisted, contorted faces around her. The laughter turned to screeches of rage, shadows twisting and writhing in fearful retreat. But one figure remained, cloaked in an aura darker than the night itself, observing, waiting. I will take everything, the voice bellowed, resonating through the cave of darkness. The figure reached out, and the air thickened, suffocating her resolve. Give me your love, or lose it entirely. Emily's heart raced, the weight of the choice crushing her. Would she exchange her last piece of joy to save her children? No. She screamed defiantly, her resolve hardening like steel. I will not give in to you. The shadows recoiled, the manifestation of her defiance shocking the darkness. Yet pain pierced through again, a warning stab reminding her of the force aimed to consume her light. She staggered back, the vision of Jack and Mia flickering like a candle struggling in the wind. Suddenly, without warning, the earth trembled beneath her, cracking and splitting like the rift between worlds. Emily gasped for breath, a thick fog of dread closing in again. Were they truly lost? Was her love not enough? Brace yourself, a familiar voice whispered, an echo of her heart. But who had spoken? The shadows pressed in, slashing through her light with renewed fury. As the darkness roared, a feeble whisper seemed to float on the air, a promise of hope and fear interwoven. What if you lose them forever? Emily's heart shattered at the thought, plunging deeper into darkness, fighting against the inevitable pull. She would discover the truth and battle the shadows, no matter the cost. However, amid her struggle, a chilling realization set in. What if she was the monster all along? Was her love powerful enough to confront the darkness she had unknowingly fed? The moment hung suspended. What awaited as the shadows danced and swirled around her, hungry for the completion of their wicked cycle? Emily stood on the edge of a precipice, her gaze locked onto the swirling abyss that yawned before her. The tension in her chest felt like an ever-tightening noose. Tendrils of shadow still clung to her, like serpents eager to drag her down into a hell of her own making. She clenched her fists, her nails biting into her palms, anchoring her in this moment of clarity, a brief reprieve amid chaos. Love doesn't abandon, she whispered to herself, drawing strength from the memory of Jack's warm embrace and Mia's innocent laughter. But the darkness didn't care for memories, it hungered for submission. As she surveyed the pit, the faces of the damned flashed before her, a ghastly gallery of despair. Each one cried silently for release, their eyes pleading yet accusatory. Emily could feel it, a gnawing doubt eating away at her. Were they truly victims? Or were they simply shadows of her own guilt, reflections of her fears? A laughter echoed around her, not joyful, but mocking and taunting, spiriting hope away from her heart. "You can't save them," it hissed, "their fate lies in your hands." "No." Her voice rang out defiantly, echoing off the cavernous walls. The cries of the lost intensified, surrounding her, and the temperature dropped, turning the air frigid. She trembled, but not just from the cold. It was a bone-deep terror that gnawed at the edges of her soul. The shadows shifted again, and the malevolent figure materialized before her. Its face, obscured by darkness, bore no features save for a sinister smile that stretched impossibly wide. "Your love has been a curse," it breathed, its voice oozing with malice. "You think it will save them? They already belong to me." Emily felt the world tilt dangerously, her grip on sanity slipping like water through her fingers. "They're not yours. They're mine," she shouted, voice raw with desperation. Suddenly, the ground beneath her quaked, sending tremors through her body. The darkness swirled violently, snapping and crackling like a live wire. It roared back, absorbing her defiance and harnessing it into a pervasive dread. In the end, all will be lost. The shadows surged forward, and Emily staggered back as the pit of sorrow yawned wide. She was losing ground not just against the darkness but against herself. She dug her heels into the shifting earth. "I will not be your pawn." The words erupted from her like a volcano, fierce and unyielding. Emboldened, she reached deep within, searching for that flicker of love and hope. But just as she steadied herself for the confrontation she knew was coming, silhouettes rose from the shadows. Jack's face emerged first, ghostly and sorrowful. "Mom, help us," he whispered, his eyes begging her to look away from her own fears. "Mia?" She hardly dared to hope. But as the shadows solidified, the figures twisted, faces morphing into something monstrous. Was this the truth she feared? Were they lost souls, or grotesque manifestations of her agony? "Accept it," the voice coiled around her like smoke. "They need you to free them. Stop resisting." Emily's chest tightened as she fought against a wave of fatigue. The darkness was not just aimed at her children, it was her own self-loathing, her own demons coming alive. Sweat trickled down her brow. If they were just illusions, what was the price of freedom? No. Clenching her jaw, she resolved to challenge the shadows. She would end this. She took a step forward, heart racing, filling her mind with every memory that gleamed brightly. But a wave of despair struck her, heavy as lead. What if she couldn't save them? What if confronting this darkness meant losing everything? The shadows howled with fury, a tempest of anguish boiling around her. Just as she prepared to unleash the light within, a familiar voice echoed through the chaos, vivid and penetrating through the despair. "Mom. Please don't give up on us." The sound cut through the air, igniting a spark deep within her. The love she thought she had lost surged forth, battling against the oppressive darkness. But as the shadows writhed in agony, another unsettling doubt arose. What if the love she clung to was the very thing that made her vulnerable? Would sacrificing her heart make her the very monster she feared she had become? The ground beneath her began to shatter, and she clung desperately to the remnant of hope. But the abyss beckoned, and Emily faced a chilling question. Would she dare leap into the void to find the truth within her? She stood on the fringes of truth, teetering between light and dark. Where would this leap lead? Time was slipping away, and the shadows were closing in. The shadows clawed at her ankles, tugging with a ferocity that threatened to pull her into their swirling depths. Emily felt her heart thumping against her chest, each beat echoing doubt and dread. Could she jump into the void? What would be waiting for her on the other side? She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I want to let you take them." She shouted, a defiant roar against the looming darkness. The laughter erupted again, a chilling sound that echoed around her like a symphony of despair. "You think this is your moment?" it crooned, "you're only delaying the inevitable." Emily clenched her teeth. What if she was meant to leap? What if the truth lay not in the fear but in confronting it? The abyss undulated above her like a living thing, and in the frantic moments that followed, she felt a voice, small yet resolute, urging her forward. "Be the light, Mom, be the light." In that instant, Emily made her choice. She stepped back, her body coiling like a spring ready to unleash itself. Every fiber of her being screamed as she launched herself into the chasm of shadows, expecting to feel the icy grip pull her deeper. Instead, there was a brilliant flash of blinding light that enveloped her, swallowing the shadows whole. As she pushed through the darkness, screams erupted from the figures around her. "Mom!" They cried in unison, their voices melding into a haunting chorus. Some reached out, arms stretching toward her, pleading for rescue, but they were not Jack and Mia anymore. They were grotesque forms, twisted, distorted caricatures of herself. Each face reflected the burden of her guilt, the weight of the love she felt had abandoned her. "Help us!" They screamed, but their eyes were wild with an insatiable hunger. "No!" she yelled, desperate to expel the darkness, desperate to be free. She kept pushing against the trembling shadows, her heart racing even as panic took root. Just as she found her footing in this chaotic storm, a piercing voice slashed through the darkness. "Emily! Stop! It's not what you think." It was Jack's voice, clear yet fraught with anguish. "Jack!" She spun around, searching for him through the chaos, but the shadows twisted him, his face morphing into those taunting visages. "No! Get away! Mom!" The voice wavered, then turned to a tremble. "We're trapped, don't let them take you too. Just find the love." Desperation flared within her, igniting something she thought was extinguished. "I want to let them win." She screamed, gritting her teeth, drawing energy from that flickering light of hope inside her. She dug deep into her soul, summoning the memories of Jack and Mia, unfiltered, pure, illuminating. The shadows recoiled, shrieking, as the light emerged, burning brighter than the darkest despair. Yet just as the shadows began to dissolve, a new fear twisted in her gut. What if it backfires? A whispered thought prickled the back of her mind. What if this love she wielded didn't save them, but instead annihilated her? The ground trembled again. "Emily!" The cacophony grew louder, desperate not just for her freedom, but for hers too. Would it extinguish everything, every ounce of hope, every memory? The darkness hissed, slithering ever closer, but she held firm, resolved against the tide. She could feel Jack and Mia's presence even amid the chaos, urging her on, drawing her focus from despair to a future that still shimmered, even faintly. "To save you might cost me everything," she thought, grappling with the weight of the decision. As reality twisted and warped around her, with each pulse of light, she surged forward, the shadows clawing harder, louder, more frantic, wrapping around her legs like chains. "No!" she screamed, a cry of defiance, plunging her heart into the light that began to encase her like a cocoon. In that instant, Emily realized the darkness wasn't merely an enemy, it was a reflection of everything she feared becoming, and with that realization, she suddenly saw a flicker in the abyss. Not fear. Not failure. Something deeper. "Mom. Please don't let go." The voice trembled just beyond the dark. As shadows swirled in a furious dance, the flicker grew closer. The love within her was a force both terrifying and beautiful. "I will not surrender," she declared, poised on the brink, ready for the truth that awaited her in the heart of darkness. And then it all blurred, the light exploded, and that single flicker cast a shadow deeper than any she had ever known. What will she unleash? The pulse of her heart quickened with the question. The light burned hot, fierce and alive, fighting to tear through the icy grasp of the shadows. Emily found herself suspended in an endless swirl of darkness, her heart pounding violently in her chest. Her breaths came in quick gasps, and she wasn't sure if the trembling air was from fear or the overwhelming force that pulsed around her. In the chaos of the swirling abyss, the voices became a chaotic symphony. "You're losing yourself," they cried. "You'll never escape." Each sentence crashed against her like waves, eroding her resolve. "Jack!" she shouted again, desperate. "Mia!" A flicker of warmth danced in the distance, a weak flame fighting against the oppressive darkness. It called to her, whispering sweet promises of safety, a reminder of her children. The shadows writhed, twisting her memories into grotesque images that hung above her like nightmarish puppets, taunting her with their distorted faces. "Mom!" The plea was so raw, so filled with love and anguish that it cut through the noise. If she focused hard enough, she could almost see their silhouettes, reaching out to her. "Hold on!" she screamed into the void, and a jolt of energy surged within her. The light pulsed with her heart, each beat a reminder of what she fought for. She couldn't allow herself to be consumed. As she concentrated, she felt the light expand, a harsh brilliance that made the shadows recoil. This time, she wasn't just resisting, she was fighting back. Righteous fury ignited in her veins. "You will not take my family." The laughter morphed into a groaning wail, the shadows writhing in agony. With each footfall in the void, Emily propelled herself forward, unfurling the light from her core, scattering the tendrils of darkness like ash in the wind. For every dark visage she encountered, she saw the faces of the children she loved, illuminating her path with renewed spirit, but even as her heart swelled with determination, flickers of doubt began to invade. What if this isn't the way? Those questions skated through her mind, ghosts of her fears whispering sweetly, trying to pull her back. "No!" she roared, forcing a righteous fury into her voice, banishing doubt from her heart. A sudden calm enveloped her, bringing clarity. The shadows shrank back, trembling as she pressed on, heart racing, feet barely touching the ground. Then another voice broke through the chaos, clear as a bell. "Mom! We need you!" Her stomach turned. The voice was familiar, frighteningly so, and it surged through her. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a single figure, a haunting echo of her son. Jack loomed closer, his face eerily masked by darkness, yet eyes sparkling with a glimmer of hope. "You can break the cycle, Mom. You have to trust." Before she could respond, the abyss roared, a deep guttural sound. The darkness seemed to pulse in outraged fury, trying to pull her back into its tendrils. "Do you think you're strong enough?" it hissed. "You think love is sufficient against this?" Emily could feel the pressure building, the chaos tightening like a noose. The world around her warped, shadows melding into tar-like entities, dragging at her limbs, working to overshadow her resolve. "You don't know me," she yelled, fierce and defiant. "I've fought for them before, I won't stop now." A powerful surge flowed from her, the light burning brighter, solidifying into a shield around her. She zeroed in on Jack's gaze, and for a brief moment, she felt the warmth of home, the laughter echoing through the hallways. The strength of her love was enough to pierce the darkness. But just then, the ground rumbled ominously beneath her feet. The darkness wasn't finished yet. With each moment of defiance, it fought back with a vengeance. "No!" Emily screamed, her voice mixing with Jack's, a sonorous battle cry against the dark, and then darkness erupted all around her. The monstrous shadows poured forth like a living flood, clamoring for her soul. "Emily!" She staggered as the shadows twisted and reeled, and for a heartbeat, her light flickered in the face of sheer terror. "Mom, don't let." Jack's voice was snatched away, drowned by a cacophony of despair. The moment of clarity shattered. Emily's breath hitched. Could she truly fight this? Would she become just another lost soul within the shadows, forgotten and consumed? As cold tendrils snaked around her wrists, she caught that flicker of light again, more distant now, struggling against oppression. But she had one last breath to push through, one last stand. "Jack!" She called, reaching out, desperate to grasp the flicker of hope. What would she have to face to reach them? Would she be strong enough to become their salvation or their doom? The darkness pulsed, and in its vastness, an endless abyss awaited her challenge. And as the shadows tightened their grip, she realized it wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle for what it meant to be a mother. Would she accept her fate, or would her love triumph? What sacrifices would be made for the truth? Emily felt the grip of shadows tightening around her, each cold tendril pulling her deeper into the chaos. But amidst the clamor, a fierce determination surged. "I refuse to let you take them," she shouted at the swirling darkness. Moments of doubt lingered like ghosts in her mind, memories twisted and turned into something grotesque, but her children's faces emerged clearly, shining through the darkness. Jack and Mia. Their laughter, their warmth, drew her back from the edge of despair. Each heartbeat reminded her of what she was fighting for. Her love for them broke through the veil of shadows. Energy coursed through her as she cast aside fear and focused on the light within. "Love doesn't abandon," she yelled, a fierce wave of strength surging through her. With each word, her defiance etched deeper into the dark fabric surrounding her, forcing the shadows to recoil as they screamed in furious agony. "Now," whispered Jack's voice, clear against the haunting echoes. "You can end this." She held on to his words, her resolve becoming a shield against the despair. "You will not take my family," she bellowed, as the light within her blazed with renewed intensity, illuminating her path. The voices of the lost and damned shrieked, but she didn't waver. She had the power, she could reshape this moment. The shadows surged, a monstrous wave of souls reaching for her, but with every breath, light radiated from her heart, slicing through their chaos. Memories sparked within her, fragile moments of joy, each laughter a blade fueling her fight. "I remember you," she cried, her voice a defiant anthem. "I won't let your pain be in vain." With every pulse of light, she felt the darkness retreat. The figures morphed, their anguished faces shifting back to those of children, lost souls seeking freedom, searching for release. Each visage reminded her of Jack and Mia, urging her on. They needed her strength, needed her love to endure the darkness, to break free from their cursed cycle. "Together," she shouted, resonating strength with each syllable. The shadows shrieked as her power surged, a brilliant beam slicing through the night, pushing the darkness away. She lunged forward into the spreading light, arms outstretched to grab onto her children's figures desperately reaching for her across the expanse. "Grab my hand," she urged, their hands reaching through the darkness, desperate and trembling. Instead of fear, she felt warmth spread through her veins as their hands locked tightly around hers. "Pull us out," Mia cried, the innocence in her voice cutting through the chaos with a clarity that reverberated through her. In that moment, Emily understood their lives were entwined in this battle against the shadows. Together, they were stronger than the darkness that sought to consume them. With the combined force of their love, they surged forward, breaking free from the chains that had ensnared them. "I won't let our love be turned to ash," Emily roared, fear and grief transforming into power that illuminated the depths of their imprisonment. The shadows howled, but the light was stronger, washing over them like waves crashing upon the shore, dismantling the dark with each pulse of energy. As the dark entities writhed, their forms shattered like glass, light flooded the void surrounding them. The pain echoed, but with their connection intact, it turned to whispers of release, their simultaneous triumph so close it hung in the air like the sweetest promise. "Stay with me," Emily cried, squeezing their hands tightly as they glided through the liberating light. "We're almost there." The darkness began to collapse, suffocated by the brilliance that poured from the heart of their united will. They broke through the last barrier, emerging into a sunlit arena, the tendrils of darkness dissipating behind them, remnants of a nightmarish grip fading away. Panting, Emily sank to her knees, Jack and Mia at her sides, their faces radiant with the relief of escape. "We did it, Mom!" Jack exclaimed, disbelief and joy intertwined. Emily wrapped them in a fierce embrace, tears spilling from her eyes, a rain of relief washing away all shadows once and for all. "You're safe now," she whispered into their hair, heart swelling with hope. The oppressive heaviness lifted from the world around them, and light poured in where darkness once ruled. The smiles of her children reflected pure joy, their warmth radiant against the fear that had once gripped her heart. As they sat in the golden embrace of the sun, surrounded by echoes of laughter that filled the world anew, Emily finally felt like a mother who had not just faced her worst fears but conquered them. Together, they forged a new path, leaving the shadows behind. Now, dear friends, this is the moment to connect. You need to subscribe to the channel immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this story and video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.